I've made it a little bit easier, so it's a little higher up,
Oh, nice.
and it's got mostly your face, and it's aligned, so you'll be quite comfortable on sitting back.
Oh, good.
So
Good,
how's that?
good,
And
good.
now it's running,
Okay,
so you can start anytime,
okay.
and it should give you the ability to look up, and yet you'll be still captured.
Yeah. Oh, that is excellent.
How does that look?
I think it's
Does it
excellent.
look reasonable? You can play with it a little bit.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. That's perfect. That's perfect. So I just passed 66 and a half on January 3rd of 2013. I was born on the 3rd of July of 1946, and to set the tone of what it was like to be born in that period, I want to read a paragraph that begins chapter 2 of Philip Roth's American Pastoral. Let's remember the energy. Americans were governing not only themselves, but some 200 million people in Italy, Austria, Germany, and Japan. The war crimes trials were cleansing the earth of its devils once and for all. Atomic power was ours alone. Rationing was ending, price controls were being lifted, in an explosion of self-assertion. Auto workers, coal workers, transit workers, maritime workers, steel workers, laborers by the millions demanded more and went on strike for it. And playing Sunday morning softball on the Chancellor Avenue field and pick-up basketball on the asphalt courts behind the school were all the boys who'd come back alive. Neighbors, cousins, older brothers, their pockets full of separation pay, the GI Bill, inviting them to break out in ways they could not have imagined possible before the war. Our class started high school 6 months after the unconditional surrender of the Japanese during the greatest moment of collective inebriation in American history. And the upsurge of energy was contagious. Around us, nothing was lifeless. Sacrifice and constraint were over. The depression had disappeared. Everything was in motion. The lid was off.
Wow, that is phenomenal.
Americans were to start over again en masse, everyone in it together. If that wasn't sufficiently inspiring, the miraculous conclusion of this towering event, the clock of history reset, and a whole people's aims limited no longer by the past. There was the neighborhood, the communal determination that we, the children, should escape poverty, ignorance, disease, social injury, and intimidation, escape, above all, insignificance. You must not come to nothing. Make something of yourselves.
That's a fabulous beginning. Um, the way I'm going to start this, Paul, is to just state the purpose of this recording is to leave the story of you behind for specific people to access. And we're going to start out, it may be a little repetitious, but we'll edit this. You're going to basically state your name, your age, your location, the date of this recording, and what you are, what we are trying to sort of achieve at this point.
Paul Joseph Kay always hated the middle name. Both younger brothers escaped it, but it was too much trouble to get rid of it. I was born on, as I mentioned, July 3rd, 1946, in Philadelphia, the University Hospital, University of Pennsylvania, where Dad went to medical school. Dad was overseas when I was born. He was in Korea running, I think, the psychiatric wing of a hospital in Seoul. And I enjoyed excellent health for the most part for my first 60 years. Then a hernia occurred, slipped disc, and then discovery of cancer a little more than a year ago.
Let me just also say that we're actually recording this in your apartment in Alameda, California.
That's correct. I came back to Alameda I'd lived in the Bay Area on and off for years, starting in 1996. But I'm in Alameda now, which is a suburb of San Francisco. Alameda is an island city. The way you get here is 3 bridges and 1 tunnel. There are no high-rises, and of all the places I've lived in my life, Alameda, I think, is the most fun, most comfortable, most attractive.
We're going to start out by having you actually tell your story by going back to your earliest memories. Start with those, please.
I don't, the way some people do, have memories as a little tot of 2 or 3. I remember certain episodes. I remember 1954, when my late uncle Mutt had introduced me to baseball, playing behind the house during the World Series, and listening to the great catch by Willie Mays off of Vic Wertz. The Giants team was very heavily underdog. And I knew at the time that baseball was very exciting and that something very important had happened in the world of adults and men.
How do you remember how you felt that you were 6 years old at the time?
I was 8.
I'm sorry,
I was 8.
8 years old at the time. Remember how you felt?
I felt the excitement.
Okay, felt the
Tremendous
rush.
excitement.
Who was around you at the time? Do you remember? Besides Mutt?
Some boyhood playmates, but I forget exactly who it was.
If you can you tell us just your perception of the family history, just as you see it? Take it back or as far as you want, and just the history of you and the family, wherever you want to start, and just take it from there.
The earliest memories are difficult in that I don't remember warm family get-togethers. I remember going to Philadelphia to see both sets of grandparents. I remember that Jerry Kay was working all the time.
And Paul, by the way, this is editable, so whatever you say
Yeah.
is fair game. There's
Sure.
no holds barred. This is our shot.
Sure. Well, absolutely.
So, there's no reason to censor whatever
Well,
you're saying.
Jerry
Just
Kay is
go
going to
for it.
be 93 in a couple of weeks, and we wish him well, but he's not going to be on the scene for that much longer. I remember that from the earliest days, Myra Kay seemed to be a professional housewife. I'm not sure of the history. I think she worked to support Dad for a while as a social worker and came up with the idea of Wilmington as a venue to live in. I loathed Wilmington from my earliest days. I just didn't like it. It seemed to have the worst of aspects of a small city or suburbia without the benefits. I don't remember much before the house on 37th Street, which
Can you describe that in detail and what you remember?
the house on 37th Street was across from P.S. DuPont Field, which was the high school where Jonathan and I went for grades 7 through 12. I remember coming home for lunch, although it seems an impossibly long distance now.
What were those lunches like?
The lunches, well, this gets to a very, now the light has gone off, Jonathan.
So it's have to touch wherever that
The
happens. just
screen.
hit
Oh
that.
yeah, of course, I know
It's
that,
broken.
I know that.
Yeah.
This gets into a very sore subject because Jerry Kay always had the notion that Myra Kay was one of the world's great chefs.
I shouldn't laugh, but
And
there's
I
irony
remember,
there, Paul.
I remember, I forget when it was that you were going to Steer Inn, which is a predecessor of McDonald's. And I guess this is when we're a little older, but the food was ghastly, and Mother was just very ill-equipped to do it. I suppose there were a couple of Jewish dishes where she was competent, but I remember meat being cooked in a well on the stove and sometimes burning. I remember iceberg lettuce and tomatoes that tasted like potatoes in the middle of winter.
Do you remember any tension regarding meals and around the dinner table? Was there
the tension was that Dad wouldn't come home until later, and so we would eat. And I don't remember our eating together so much. I remember Mother being upstairs sleeping. And then coming home for lunch, I don't remember the food. I remember the break getting away from school. We could hear the bells from PS from the house. The house was a semi-detached row house next to a dead end in those days. As we discussed, I think a little earlier today, the initial phone number was 41144 in 1952. And the house had the basic services, but not any luxury. Even then, friends of ours who were more confident or who just wanted a little more space started living in Brandywine Hills. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs in addition to Mom and Dad's bedroom. My room was chronically cold, and I took a look at it, and it went out into space. In other words, it didn't retain the heat of the house building. So
sort of overhang.
Overhang, yeah, overhang.
Outside.
That's right. I mean, as a starter house, it was fine, but it wasn't very comfortable.
Who were the neighbors? Remember neighbors?
The first neighbors to our right, looking at the field, were the Huffs. I think he was an engineer. DuPont. They were a childless couple, I believe. Very waspy and elegant, and I think we went in their house once, and our house was never really well organized. Myra Kay was not one for taking care of things in the meticulous way that, let's say, I feel comfortable taking care of things. We did have black cleaning ladies. Violet Dixon, I think, was the longest serving one during the 50s growing up.
What was she like, and what was her family like? Do you remember?
Bill Dixon, I think, was a truck driver, and I think she had some kids and eventually became a teacher's assistant and left.
Do you remember Dad giving money to him?
To Bill Dixon?
Yeah.
No, I don't. Now, that episode I don't remember.
He would come to the house on occasion, rare occasions when they were strapped for money, and he would give them an unsecured loan.
I didn't know that.
Tell me a little bit about your feelings about Dad as you were growing up. Obviously, there's a lot there. But
It's hard to know where to begin. In the first place, Jerry Kay at 6'2", and I don't know, 180 or maybe a bit more, was in some respects an intimidating figure. But I have the sense of someone who tried very hard to be a good dad, but was never there. It was never comfortable or easy to talk about feelings. And insofar as I remember that period of time growing up, I remember that you and I were good pals, and we could trust each other. Even at times when I was taking a shit, you would come into the bathroom, or vice versa, and we would talk things over. If there was any sibling rivalry, I don't remember it. I really don't. I was expected to be a cross of Albert Einstein and Mahatma Gandhi and all things wonderful. It was expected that I would just be a wonder boy. And while I was bright as a kid, as the years went on, it began to dawn on me that I wasn't as bright as some of my friends, and I rather resented the expectations. Also, playing violin and having expensive lessons later on in Philadelphia was something that was never comfortable for me. I was, by the end of high school, the concertmaster of the Wilmington All-City Orchestra. When I got to college, I was second violin, very pedestrian. Two of my friends in my freshman class were first violinists and were much, much better than I was.
Was Gene Alexander one of them?
No, Gene was my roommate. This was Lance Nagel, who lives here in Berkeley, who was a real true prodigy, who studied with people at what's the school in New York?
Juilliard.
Juilliard, right. And David Shapiro. David Shapiro was someone who arrived on campus with a book of poems published already. So it went on to literary fame.
Let's go back to high school a bit. Tell me your memories of P.S. DuPont and what that was like when you were in class in the orchestra. Any friends or girlfriends or issues, dating? What you
The social thing was really crazy, Jonathan, because there was tremendous peer pressure to be socially successful. What did that mean? That meant having a girlfriend, having someone to sit close to you when you rode around in a car, and that never happened to me. And Myra Kay always felt that if you had a girlfriend, it meant your life was over. You were going to knock her up, or you were going to get married, or something terrible was going to happen. And she always used the phrase, when you get a girl, in a poisonous, toxic, how can I put it, castrating bitch sense.
Wasn't that pretty fucked up?
Oh, I thought it was tremendously fucked up. I never had it.
Just make sure we've got this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make sure that we're catching this. It's really good. At 18 minutes, I'm just going to.
How long will this go for?
31 hours.